Awesome.
All right, Daniel.
All right. So,
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. You
yeah.
said you're open to sharing your story.
Yes, you betcha. I'm up in Canada, right, the southernmost part of Canada, in BC, by the capital here,
Okay.
Vancouver Island.
Beautiful, beautiful place.
Yep. Yeah. So started listening to your channel pretty much right when you started doing the Jordan Peterson stuff.
Really?
It's probably, if it wasn't your first, it was your second or third
Okay.
Jordan Peterson video. And yeah, place I was in, pretty much, it was good to listen to you all the time. So it worked out. You put out so much content. I could sit and listen to you ramble for hours and hours. So it was good.
My apologies for all the rambling. You're
very
gracious.
I enjoyed it. I know some people say they listen to you sped up, and it's like, yeah, I got time.
Normal speed.
Yeah, it works for me.
So where'd you grow up?
Grew up close to Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, was born in Victoria on the island here, and then moved to a suburb of Vancouver when I was 4 or 5, I think. And then moved further out, about an hour inland from Vancouver, into Chilliwack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and grew up there. Moved back here. When I was 20, moved out of mom and dad's, and came back to the island.
Did you go to church? Did you go to church with your family growing up?
Yeah. Born and raised in a Christian home, as the story goes.
What kind of church?
We kind of flipped around a little bit. We have all my people are Mennonites, so.
Okay.
So my mom and dad both had kind of left their Mennonite churches, and we went to some Mennonite community church kind of churches, and went to some just evangelical generic things. We wound up going to an EV free church. Met in a school gymnasium for most of my teenage years. And yeah, it was good. Lots of good people, but I could never figure out what they were doing.
That's a great line.
So people would talk about things, and I wouldn't be able to connect words to concepts. And when I got to be 12 or 13, Sunday school was kind of a little. People were more interested in being fun, I guess, than talking seriously about things. And it's a high IQ kid, and homeschooled, so had a little bit of a.
Oh, you were homeschooled too.
A little bit of an attitude when it came to getting information.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Why did your parents homeschool? That's fairly. You don't seem that old, but that's homeschooling's a fairly recent phenomenon. So your parents must have been sort of
fairly. They took a lot of flack from a lot of people for it.
Yeah, but, I can imagine.
Yeah, my brother went to school till I think a few grades in public school, and my mom pulled him out. He wasn't doing well. They were holding him back because he was reading at like a grade 5 level when he was in grade 2, and wasn't getting along with the other kids, and so my mom pulled him out. And when it was my turn, she just said, "Nah, we'll keep him at home." So they did that for up until I went to private school. Never went to public school at all. Went to private school in grade 11.
What kind of a private school?
It was like I think it was a Pentecostal Christian school.
Okay.
So they were a little different too. Not too different from what I was used to. I'd been to a couple Pentecostal churches, and the evangelical world is all kind of a little bit soupy. But chapel was interesting, a little more charismatic than
Yeah.
than the Mennonites anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you go to college?
Went to the one term of computer science.
Huh.
Did with one term of hardware and one term of software. And yeah, figured did the hardware stuff and figured this looks like it's going to be boring. Maybe I should do software. Did the software stuff and thought this is going to be boring too. And I'm losing my mind sitting in front of a computer all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with computers as a hobby, and it's better as a hobby.
Better as a hobby. So when you didn't do college, what did you do for work?
Went into tiling. When I got
Tiling.
out of school. Actually, it's funny. I went to grade 11. I went to Christian school, and then grade 12 they had a school that was like an experimental project between the school district and the local university, and they were doing university courses and high school at the same time. So I went in there and got started in computer science there, and then went into plumbing when I got out of that for a year and a half, and thought, nah, I don't want to work for a living. I want to go do computers. Then I went through that and thought, no, I don't want to do this. I want to work for a living. So when I was plumbing, it always looked like the tile guys had the easy trade. So figured I'd try that. And
it's a lot cleaner than plumbing.
it's cleaner than plumbing. Don't have to go into the crawl space ever. You do one service job, plumbing, and you don't want to do anymore.
I totally understand that.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you listen to a lot of YouTube when are you still in tiling?
Just quit forever. You know,
Really?
when you're in trades, there's always a point you want to quit forever, and it's like the mob. They always drag you back in. But yeah, I had this brutal summer. I took on this job that I thought was going to be a big job, and I had no concept how big it was going to be, and it just spiraled out of control, and doing 70-hour weeks, and it's like stressing out like crazy. So now I'm kind of taking a break and trying to reassess.
Okay.
Reassess where I'm going and what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so I ended up listening to a lot of YouTube.
When you were tiling?
When I was, well, not actually when I was working. I would listen to tiling or listen to YouTube when I was at home, because I haven't had a life for forever.
Okay.
Yeah, I started kind of isolating myself when I was a teenager, and you get into your teenage years and you get awkward, and I figured, this is too awkward. It's not worth it. So I sort of started cutting myself off from people bit by bit, and ended up with very few friends and not much of a community at all. And moved out of my hometown back to the island, to Victoria for a couple of years. Started tiling and didn't make any friends. My brother lived out there, so I had my brother that I would talk to. My uncle and aunt lived out there. I stayed with them for a little while, but once I got out into my own place, and it was didn't have anybody really, and didn't know what to do, and got into drugs and destroyed my whole world. Came back to live with the folks, and it was about 10 years ago. Moved back to Chilliwack and stayed there for most of 10 years. Kind of trying to become a person again.
Did you do a program to get off drugs, or just living with your parents broke the routine?
No, just living with my folks. They found out pretty quick once I moved back.
Hang on a second. I got someone at the door and I got no one to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about the interruption.
All right.
Daniel. Anyway,
You're a good guy, Paul.
thanks. So you got on drugs when you were away, and you moved back home.
Yeah, moved back home.
And that's often the case, that if you've got people around you, if you've got some support, you do better.
Yeah, seems that way.
Yeah.
So like I say, it didn't take too long. Once I moved back home, my parents figured it out, so that was fun. But it was good. Lived with them for a few years. Wound up going to work at a little Christian summer camp just up the street from where they were living. That I actually knew the family from when I was a kid. So I went up there and worked for them cooking for 5 years, which was actually great.
Wow.
Didn't really make any money to speak of, but it was fun, and it was good to be there. They were good for me, and I was there. That they had all kinds of disasters happen with their management, and I was able to help keep bailing out the ship. So it was good. But that was 5 years. Then they kind of stabilized, and I was starting to feel like I should probably move on and get a real job. So went back to tiling and did that for another 5 years. Now I feel like I should get a real job and move on again.
Okay. What kind of real job are you interested in?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
You've done a lot of different things, so.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know. At this point, I want to move to a tiny island and try and sell seashells to tourists. Once I get some rest, we'll see.
Yeah. So how did you, what kind of stuff were you listening to on YouTube, and how did you find Jordan Peterson?
Let's see. It was listening to lots of culture war stuff when I found Jordan Peterson, like lots of the buckos, started to get a little anxious about cultural movements, with seeing the whole movement past the gay marriage thing to the transsexual thing, and you can start to see a trajectory going, and get a little concerned, and then start to see, well, when you pay attention, you start to see all kinds of weird things that pop up in the pop culture world, and people getting all upset about speakers coming to speak, and so started to get quite anxious about all that stuff, and worried about all the feminists are destroying society and whatever. And so then Jordan Peterson came on talking about C16, and he's so dynamic that you can't help but keep watching the guy once you see him, right? So I soaked up a couple of years of Jordan Peterson, probably 2 years of Jordan Peterson YouTubes, till I pretty much felt like I'd listened to him and he was just saying everything that I expected him to say. And then right around that time, I bumped into your channel via the algorithms. So I had another 2 years of rambling to listen to.
So what about my channel have you found helpful, or why keep listening? What parts of it, what aspects, what kind of things do you think about?
Well, for me, I'd say it's what I wanted Sunday school to be when I was a kid and never got. To flesh that out a little bit more. You've been doing a good job, I think, and or at least trying very hard, and obviously getting results in explaining religious ideas in language that people who don't really understand religious language can can grab onto, which I found very, very useful. Like I say, talking to religious people when I was a kid is like one of Peterson's smart 13-year-olds, I guess. And growing up, I still, I'll talk to my parents, and every once in a while read a book or listen to a sermon or whatever, or tag along to church sometimes, and can't make heads or tails of what people are talking about. So yeah, between you and Jonathan Pageau, we're kind of got two different perspectives that I could grab onto and kind of say, okay, I think I can kind of see what they're talking about a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's kind of the deal, to try and figure out what's going on, try to figure out what's real. I really like Jonathan's. When I first started listening to Jonathan Pageau, it was like, what is this guy talking about? It was really hard to understand him at first. And it was like, he's saying all this stuff, and what does he mean by this? And after a little while, you start to get it. It's like, oh, okay, I kind of see where he's coming from, and then you begin to see how his perspective helps understand some other things. It's like, oh, this is interesting. So
that's what I thought. There's lots of things that at first I was just, let's see, where's he going with this? What's he talking about? And every once in a while he'd say, oh, he gets it. Okay, I should pay attention, because he's tracking with me on something, so I should listen to him.
So you're done tiling, and you're looking for change. What do you want? What do you want for your next chapter for yourself?
I want to go home.
How old are your parents? Are your parents still well?
Yeah, they're doing well. They're in their 50s, creeping up on 60 now, I guess.
Okay, so about my age.
They're doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
How's your brother doing?
My brother's having a hard time. He's kind of more like me. Never figured out religion, and he went off and did his own thing, got into the military, and ended up injuring his back and getting discharged, and he's dealing with Veterans Affairs for forever and ever. They're paying him out and trying to retrain him, and he's dealing with his issues from that, and so that's he's having a hard time.
Wow.
Yeah, my little sister too, for whatever reason, seems to be having a hard time too. She's never left the church, but she seems to have a hard time finding a church that she feels like she belongs in now. For whatever reason that is.
Well, churches are complex. They really are. And I know a lot of people it's a struggle for a lot of people, because churches are full of people, and people are messy, and people can be petty and opinionated, and churches are all full of regular people, which means that they're petty and opinionated and try to control others and try to get their way, and they want the whole institution to do a certain thing. And I mean, it's a complicated business.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry to hear that your sister and brother are struggling. That's hard, and I'm sure your parents worry for them.
Yeah, it's not easy for them.
Yeah.
Well,
parents worry often because the parents know that parents won't be around forever, and and parents take care of kids. That parents always worry for their kids, but At some point, they want to see their kids doing okay because they sort of want permission to not be here to take care of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's how it should be.
Yeah. It's a very common thing, especially when men die. Men who have wives who are still alive, they worry about their wives. Who's gonna look after my wife? And as pastor, I said, well, you're in the church. We'll all look after them, and we'll keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing okay.
Yeah. My grandfather got cancer when I was a kid, and they ran him through all the chemo and whatever, but just knocked the stuffing right out of him when he was maybe in his 70s, something like that. And after that, a few years after that, his health went down pretty steadily after that. He looked like he was about ready to go, and he hung around for a good 10 years. We were all sure, just because my grandma was still kicking, he wasn't gonna go
Yeah.
any sooner than he had to. He wanted to look out for her. And she's invincible. She's like coming up on 100 now, and she's got fractured bones in her legs and her back, and she can't see and she can't hear, and she's still alive. She'll never die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something else for your parents to do, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So does your sister live with your parents or in the same town, or?
No, my sister's in Vancouver.
Okay.
She's an artist working in animation.
Really?
Yeah, so she's got to be in the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for her. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well,
they work like dogs apparently in animation. They got slave drivers and everything. You wouldn't think it. It looks like it's so cute, but
I believe it. I remember seeing a documentary on Walt Disney, and had all these animators. That was back when everything had to be drawn by hand, and just had whole lines of animators like factory workers.
Yeah.
Wow.
No doubt.
Well, you've got an interesting family, you and your sister and your brother and your different stories, and the homeschooling and it's people aspire to have such generic lives, but that certainly is not the story with your family.
No, I guess not. Little more generic. Starting to sound good though, Paul.
Well, yeah, that's just it. We like predictable.
Yeah.
We like knowing what's coming. There's mapped and unmapped territory, and we want to kind of have that balance. Too much mapped territory, we get bored. Too much unmapped territory, we get anxious. And so we're always, regulating between boredom and anxiety. And but that because you tiled until it's like, okay, I'm done tiling.
Oh yeah.
So now on to something else. Well, I'm curious, so you have any inklings or ideas what you want that something else to be?
I'm not sure. On the one hand, I ever since I was a kid, I've been convinced we're all insane for not just subsistence farming. So I might just see how much food I can grow and see how that goes. I don't know. But it's probably not very practical.
There's, I lived, so when I was a missionary in the Dominican Republic, I worked with Haitians, and the Haitians, they picked coffee, they cut cane, but that was for cash. And what almost all the Haitians I knew really lived on was a little garden, So what the coffee pickers and the cane growers would do is it'd be crappy bits of land like these Haitians. They would garden these slopes that were I'd walk on and be like, holy cow. And every now and then you'd hear about someone who took a tumble because they
Oh
fell.
yeah.
But they gardened these slopes, and they were basically mostly subsistence farmers. And I'll tell you, it was when the rains came at the wrong time, or they would often want to plant their guandules, which were beans,
Yeah.
but then they'd sometimes want to do the malanga, which is arrowroot, and they'd because it was at least a tuber, so you could count on it. If you got a
Right.
rain at the wrong time, you wouldn't lose your crop. And boy, if they had they were always just, I'm going to take this money, I'm going to plant this, and hopefully
Right.
it'll come in and I'll sell stuff. And
Right.
it's a life. It's a life. It's not an easy life, but it is a
whole
life.
different set of stresses, eh?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
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 It really is.
But
at the same time, they lived outside. They believed in God. They prayed. They lamented when the crops didn't come in. They praised when it did. They had plenty of meaning in their life. I saw no meaning crisis among the Haitians, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But most of those Haitians, if they'd have a chance, to get to the U.S. or Canada, would love to do so. But I don't know if they got here. I've seen immigrants come, and it's so interesting because they appreciate the money, they appreciate the material security. Maybe their kids will have prosperity, but I think a certain deadness comes in, and they sense that. And I think in some ways we're so much more used to it.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
And I think that's where drugs come in often, and I think people take drugs sometimes because they want to feel alive, or they want to deaden. Because Daniel was right in here, and he had a beer that he confessed to me that he stole because he goes into these little corner stores, and they have these little ATM machines in there that tend to rip you off anyway because they have high price things, and he'll put his card in, and they don't want him in the store, so they'll pull the plug out right after he is waiting for the money, which cancels and so then you're ripping me off, so I'm gonna take this can of beer, and are you really gonna, how hard a time are you gonna give me for robbing a $2 can of beer? And it just life on the street.
Yeah, I'm so fortunate I never wound up on the street, Paul. I don't know if I would have made it. But lucky for me, I've got a fantastic family, so
That's huge.
it's huge, man. It's huge.
Well, and the fact that your parents took you in instead of kicking you out, because usually when people show up, by the time people show up at my door, I'll sit down and I'll start having a conversation with them, because hey, if you want 10 or 20 bucks from me, at least I'm going to get your story out of you. I'll trade 20 bucks for your story.
Yeah.
And because nobody was hatched, so I want to know, well, what really happened to the point that nobody else in this world will loan you 10 or 20 bucks, and you have to knock on a church door and talk to a total stranger? Something happened, you know?
Yeah.
And in many cases, there's just a lot of sadness and brokenness. Many of the homeless people actually have family that live in the neighborhood. And
I believe it.
They burned out their family so badly that the family just had no other choice but to put up a wall. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm always amazed that I didn't done that to my family. It's something incredible.
I would imagine as a tiler too, when you're working in the trades like that, you get you know, that Chris Sarnade wrote that book about, you know, front row and back row America. Same is true for Canada. That, you know, there are folks, a lot of folks, they hold down a white collar job, they get a regular paycheck, or a service work job, they get a regular paycheck, they pay their mortgage, they have, you know, health insurance, boom, 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 boom. Then there's the other class of people that they're working trades. So when work is good, they're making money. When it's bad, you know, it's just subsistence all the way through. Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
Okay. No, it's just the front row and back row nature of our societies. And, you know, as a Tyler, I imagine you got to know a lot of back row.
Right. I imagine that's true. That sounds like a good description. You meet so many different kinds of people in trades, but
yeah,
lots of people who are in the back row or the standing room only section. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, of course, I grew up. My father had a church with a lot of back row people in a back row part of town, and this here in Sacramento is a back row part of town here too. But
sounds that way.
But I've been blessed by it because, I don't know. Again, people in the back row don't seem to have the same meaning crisis people in the front row have. They're not immune from it.
Maybe
they're not immune from it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. You see lots of people who are. Now, I missed the part where you were talking about the book with the front row and the back row, so I don't know exactly what way you're using that term.
Well, so a guy named Chris Sarnade wrote a book called Dignity that came out a little while ago, and a bunch of people were pestering me to read it, so I read it. And it was basically, this guy was a Wall Street. He worked on Wall Street, making tons of money. But I find this sometimes with people. And so he worked on Wall Street, made tons of money, but he liked going for long walks, and he lived in New York. So he started going for long walks through parts of town that people would tell him not to go into. And there's certain kinds of contrarians that if you tell them not to, they will definitely do it. And so he started spending a lot of time in neighborhoods that people who work in Wall Street don't go in. And he began taking his camera and just having conversations with people on the street, and got to know the drug dealers and the homeless people and the prostitutes and basically started building relationships, and then found this so interesting for him that he had enough money saved up from his Wall Street job that he started going through all kinds of back row communities in America. And he said, you know, the two institutions that survive in back row America are McDonald's and churches. And when he said that, that's just dead right. Because, you know, I'll tell you, I know a lot of church planters, when they plant churches, they go to Starbucks and strike up conversations with people, because if you want to plant a church, you sort of want to plant a church in a community that people will have enough disposable income and the motivation to get a tax credit to donate to a church. Right. People don't hang out in McDonald's to plant a church. You hang out in McDonald's to plant a church, number one. Most of the people in McDonald's already believe in God. Number two, they don't have any disposable income. Number three, the kind of church they go to doesn't have the same kind of salaried relationship that front row churches have. You know, front row churches have budgets and salaries and benefits, and these are churches pastors like to work in. Right. Back row churches, well, they bring in money, but the pastor begs and cajoles and promises and swindles money to keep the church going, you know?
Yeah.
And most front row pastors, they don't want to do that. They don't want to, you know, they feel dirty saying things like, cajoling and pressuring and arm twisting people to come and put money in the plate. And that's
Right.
actually why in a community like this, and in my father's community, a lot of folks who grew up going to back row churches don't mind front row churches, because at least we're not running a religious con looking for money. But that is not fair to the back row churches, because
No.
truth is there's all different kinds of them.
Yeah.
And so
I gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I mean, if you're working as a tiler, you're working with a lot of people. I mean, I've known a lot of the people that I've known who were semi-employed and living on the streets almost all worked some kind of construction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Painting
It's,
or plumbing, they could work 2 days a week, make a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
Drink the cash the other days of the week. When they run out of money, they
Exactly.
go back to work for cash under the table with some contractor who doesn't mind paying people under the table, so on and so forth.
Totally. Yeah, it's the industry where if you show up in the morning on time and you're sober, you're an A1 employee.
That's right. That's right.
So yes, lots of back row people. I don't know if there's many front row people in my life. We were poor when I was a kid. I remember we got a couple of food hampers from our church. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it when I was a kid, but it's certainly a memory that hasn't left me. So yeah, lots of back row people, lots of class resentment, which isn't good.
Yeah.
But it's a thing.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. I got into punk rock music when I was a teenager, and as I got more lost, you fit in more with the misfits subcultures. So I got more into the punk rock thing, and yeah, a lot of resentment. That's for sure.
No, and anybody who works in drug rehab will talk to you about the link between resentment and addiction.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just fuel for addiction.
That's there for sure. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was mostly social resentment of the social awkwardness, say. It made it hard to made it hard to connect with people, because you start resenting everybody more and more. You feel more isolated and not sure what to do about it. I had self-esteem issues, which didn't help for sure, and just terribly awkward with girls. And then I grew up and get more and more resentful at girls, which is unhealthy because it takes over your whole world, eh?
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't so good.
Yeah. That's tough stuff. That's really
tough stuff. It is. I right when I got into puberty, I got this this rash all over my crotch. We couldn't figure out what it was. We went to the doctor, and the best he could figure out was it was psoriasis. And I thought, oh no, I've got psoriasis on my crotch. I'm doomed. My life is over, man. So that was my teenage years.
Wow.
That was tough.
Wow, that's rough.
That was tough.
That's rough.
Then I got out once I grew up and had already destroyed myself. A rash went away. I think it was just some psychosomatic thing I gave myself because I was stressed out.
Oh, oh.
So that's that was the thing.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that is no,
So,
you know, and I think the culture war stuff is in some ways there's so much resentment in that
so
too.
much, yeah, yeah, on all sides, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's people. It's hard to say what it is. I guess that's what everybody's trying to figure out, but nobody wants to talk to each other anymore. Everybody's getting wound up. Uh, I think part of the reason that I really latched onto Jordan Peterson and you guys is well, the whole reason is because of the religious. You guys are all Christian. Well, Jordan Peterson, who knows what Jordan Peterson is? He's Jordan Peterson, but you're all talking about Christianity, and this is it's two things, because it's been, you know, because I couldn't figure it out when I was a kid. It's been my project my whole life to try and figure out what is this that my culture is based on, that I grew up with, that I can't understand. Uh, and then watching the culture war, watching just the breakdown of basic civility between people. It didn't take long, and I would watch things and I would just think, this is because we're not Christian anymore. Nobody wants to have grace for anybody, you know. Everybody wants people to be perfect, which isn't going to happen ever. It's not going to go well. So so I saw that and I thought, this is more fuel. I've got to put this together and figure out what's going on with this religious problem that seems to be the same in the rest of my world. I'm still working on it.
Well, we all are.
That's why I listen to so much of you guys.
Yeah. Well, I put out so much stuff because, you know, I'm trying to figure it out.
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's why you're fun to listen to for 2 hours of rambling. If you were just telling us all the stuff you knew, it would get kind of boring.
yeah, I guess
It's
that's
fun.
true.
It's fun to listen to you work with ideas and figure things out and make connections. And it's fun to watch people make connections, because it teaches you a little bit how to do it yourself, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true.
What else? There was something I was thinking I was going to say. No, I'm not sure what it was. I think maybe it was talking about girls and my troubles. Uh, what it was about 30 when I got a girlfriend. Uh, kind of dated a couple of girls and didn't really go anywhere. Dated one girl because she threw herself at me. It's a little bit humiliating to admit, but I was 30. I thought, I'm 30. I've never kissed anybody, and this girl is right here. So
Yeah.
I'll try that, and it ended up being just so horribly. I embarrassed myself terribly, and felt bad about the whole thing, and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Then I met another lady that I dated, who ended up dating her for 3 years. Got pretty serious. It was very foolishly chosen, bad match.
Mm.
Absolutely, what can I say? An absolutely wonderful, horribly damaged person that I kind of chose foolishly and fell crazily in love with, and it was just an impossible relationship.
Mm.
And it was just 3 years of brutally hard.
Mm.
Uh, and hard too, because it was good in some ways and so bad in other ways. Impossible to keep up, and yet I didn't want to give up on it. It was tough. And I'd been drinking like mad ever since I got off drugs. Well, I had a little bit of time when I was at my folks' place and managed to stay sober, but I drank like crazy for years, and was still drinking like crazy when I was dating this girl, and that ended up becoming a problem, obviously, in many ways. And then it ended up the suite I was living in. I was cooking and passed out drunk on the couch and burnt food, and the fireman came, and the landlady asked me to leave, and I had the choice to move in with the folks or move in with the girlfriend, and moved in with the girlfriend.
Oh
That
boy.
was interesting.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
oh boy is right. and the story got worse from there, Paul.
Oh. This is life, my friend. This is life. This is what happens. It's true. You survived. You survived.
I survived. Yeah. Things got more and more stressful, and she went away for a week, and I was cooking and passed out drunk on her couch. Her landlord asked me to leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. By that time, it was long past time to bite the bullet and break up with her, and it still took a few months to do that. But yeah, it ended. It didn't end very well, but it ended. So then I moved back in with the folks, stayed there for about 2 years, I guess. Pretty much just worked, watched some old movies with the folks in the evening, and
Yeah.
walked the dog,
Yeah.
listened to a lot of YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
Uh,
When you live with your folks, do you get along?
yeah, we we learned to get along very well. It's actually that's been a blessing
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
all of this. To yeah, we worked out our differences and sorted out the issues from the past, and got to know my parents as people, which is actually pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been good.
Yeah. That is
Yeah,
good. That is good. You know, your parents sound like wonderful people. They really do.
they really
Um,
are.
Wow. I wish more people had parents like yours.
Me too.
There'd be fewer people on the
Me too.
street.
It's true, man. It's true.
Wow.
They're amazing, amazing people.
Wow. Well, Daniel, I will send this video to you, and you can decide what you'd like me to do with it.
Sounds good.
If you can look it over and decide if you'd like me to share it, or if you just want to keep it between us, that's okay too. It's totally up to you.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, Daniel.
All right.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Paul. It's weird, but it's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's weird, I know. But God bless you on whatever new thing comes your way now after tiling. So
well, thank you.
I pray that God brings good things into your life, and God bless your parents, because they sound like just terrific, godly people.
Well, thank you.
All right.
And thanks for all the YouTube rambling that you're doing, Paul. It's much appreciated.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too, man. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.